Alright, before we jump into things, I want to say that this video is actually a sequel to another video, so if you haven't watched that one, Facts Do Care About Your Feelings, be sure to go watch it first. It'll be in the description and in a card, like here somewhere, if I can figure out how to do that. So if you haven't watched it, go do that. If you have watched it, then let's get started. You may also be wondering, hey Zoe, is that the same sweater that you wore in the last one, but pink instead of gray? Yes. Yes, it is. In my last video, I talked about how facts do care about your feelings. I talked about how all of science and statistics and data, all the stuff that we think is objective, is actually filtered through layer after layer of feelings. And that's not to say that facts don't exist or that science is useless. It's to say that we need to be careful when people say that they are just being objective, because that is usually a big red flag that they are not being objective. When I closed out the video, I suggested that people like Ben Shapiro, who say that all their views are based on facts, aren't actually using facts at all. They're using something else, something that makes their arguments really enticing. See, facts are dependent on ideology. Facts do actually care about your feelings, but your feelings, they don't actually care about facts. Stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to look at what actually gets people invested in things, but which has garnered a pretty bad reputation as a persuasive technique. We are going to talk about stories. So, yes, today we are going to be talking about why facts aren't very persuasive, why stories are persuasive, and what that means for modern discourse. Let's get started. In the last video, I talked about how objectivity and data and statistics have gotten this reputation for being the best, everything, just for being the best. We think that giving people numbers and charts and hard evidence is the best way to convince people of things. I mean, you can't argue with facts, right? So to talk about this, I actually need to bring out some English teacher ammo and talk about the rhetorical triangle. Now before you click off, I promise you this isn't going to be an English 101 lesson or a philosophy lecture, just bear with me. So the rhetorical triangle is basically just a graphical representation of tools that you use to make arguments. We have logos, which is data you use to back up your argument. Ethos, which is like your credibility and how much the audience trusts you. And pathos, which is your emotional appeal, how much you can pull at the heartstrings of your audience members. Classically speaking, these three should be relatively even in your usage, but depending on the context of whatever you're saying or writing, you might favor one over the other. The way that things are right now, at least how we think they are and how a lot of folks want it to be, is like this. We're overloaded on logos. We should be arguing and determining things and changing people's minds based on facts and logic only. Ethos isn't really that important, it doesn't really matter to most people, but pathos, even if you kind of maybe get emotional about things, you've automatically lost the argument. No one will take you seriously. This is what education scholar Thomas Newkirk calls the mythology of facts, where facts are solid, verifiable, true. Opinions, on the other hand, are suspect and challengeable, tainted by bias. Facts over feelings. But facts over feelings, as much as we'd maybe love for it to be true, just isn't. Our brains actually have a really hard time being rational. Economist Daniel Kahneman has spent his whole career exploring all the ways that our brains are irrational. And his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, is basically a 500-page crash course in cognitive bias. And also, as a side note, I love this book, and I might do a deep dive into it. If anybody would be interested in that, let me know. Let's get that back on the floor. Numbers are hard for us to conceptualize. Like, imagine a chair. Okay, now imagine 10 chairs. Easy peasy, right? What about 100 chairs? That's probably still doable. Now imagine 1,000,000 chairs, or 1,000,000,000, or 1,000,000,000,000 chairs. Chances are those 3 images, the 1,000,000 chairs, the 1,000,000,000 chairs, and the 1,000,000,000,000 chairs, in your head aren't actually all that different from one another. I mean, it's a shit ton of chairs, but how much bigger is 1,000,000,000,000 than 1,000,000 anyway? To our brains, they're not all that different. Theoretically, abstractly, you understand the math, but the full weight, the reality of the sheer number of chairs isn't something that the human brain is capable of grasping. As Joseph Stalin is quoted as saying, "If only one man dies of hunger, that's a tragedy. If millions die, that's only statistics." So because we have a hard time conceptualizing data like this, it's hard for that data to actually do anything in there. It's hard for it to stick. And if you want to change someone's mind, whatever you say needs to stick. This is especially the case when it comes to data that conflicts with someone's worldview or their values. These values often become literally hardwired in your brain's chemistry, and according to psycholinguist and my hero, George Lakoff, in most cases, the neural wiring and your identity stay, and the facts are ignored, dismissed, ridiculed, or attacked. It takes extraordinary openness, training, and awareness of this phenomenon to pay crucial attention to the vast number of facts we are presented with each day. In other words, it's not impossible for facts to change our minds, but it's pretty dang hard. So what else is there? What can our brains connect with? What does have the power to change our minds? Well, stories. Stories and metaphors and anecdotes. Now that last one, anecdotes, is kind of a touchy word. If you've ever witnessed an argument on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, you know the drill. The moment that someone brings in any amount of their personal experiences, the other person immediately shuts them down for using anecdotal evidence. Anecdotes, and stories in general, have a bad reputation when it comes to discourse. To use an anecdote myself, in my classroom, whenever we discuss research, I constantly have students talk about how good research doesn't have any personal experience in it. It's all data and numbers and hard facts. It's impersonal, aloof, inhuman even. And it's true that personal experience isn't a replacement for hard science and facts and data, but it is the language of our brains. Stories, feelings, are the best way to actually connect with someone. As an English teacher, I am telling you, if you are writing something argumentative, use feelings. That is how you really connect with an audience. Because we have minds made for stories. Everything we do, every time we explain something, we explain using stories. Think about the news. No matter what happens, there's a plot of some kind. Somebody did something and got some result. There's intrigue there. This is even the case in science. When we explain a scientific concept to someone, we give life and agency to things that don't usually have it. Certain molecules are hydrophobic, which means they don't like water. Molecules can't actually fear anything. They don't care. It's chemistry. But we understand it through story. John won his battle with cancer. It's not a battle. Cancer cells aren't literally battling with the healthy ones. There aren't like little microscopic armies. That's not how it works. Law is also like this. Lawyers, prosecutors, and defense are telling two different versions of a story. One where the defendant did it, and the other one where they didn't. And sure, they use hard evidence to help them tell their stories, but at the end of the day, the jury's decision comes down to which side had the better, more believable story. And this is the case even for the subject that's maybe the furthest from storytelling, math. Now, you might be thinking that I'm going to be bringing up word problems where, like, Jose and Cindy need to figure out how many feet of streamers they need for their party, and then they have to convert that into yards when they go to the party supply store, and how all of this would be 1,000 times easier if we just converted to the metric system. And, I mean, yeah, that last part is true, but I'm actually not talking about word problems. I'm talking about just math, just the normal way that we talk about math, because it is full of metaphor. To once again quote my fave George Lakoff, if any area has been taken to be literal, disembodied, and objective, it's mathematics. Yet mathematics too is metaphorical through and through. Take the number line. Numbers don't have to be points on a line. It's a metaphor that numbers are points on a line. Mathematics turns out not to be a disembodied, literal, objective feature of the universe, but rather an embodied, largely metaphorical, stable intellectual edifice constructed by human beings with human brains living in our physical world. We use metaphors to help make things visible to our brains. Our brains have a hard time conceptualizing abstract things like the trillion chairs, and metaphors make those abstractions concrete. And then stories help to contextualize those metaphors. We want winners and losers. We want good guys who we can root for. We want tension and action and redemption arcs. Think about mythology. Myths are just how groups of people thousands of years ago conceptualized nature and disasters and seasons and pain and relationships and all of the other unexplainable phenomena around them. They understood the world through stories. These things, these stories, these metaphors, these concrete images are what affect us, not numbers. Just like with my last video, I don't want the point that you take away from this to be, oh, so science is fake and we should just ignore everything and base every single decision on feelings. No. My end goal with this video and with the last one is just to help bring balance back to the rhetorical triangle. I don't know if you can hear the purring on the mic, but he's a lovey baby. You're making this really challenging. Yeah, you're making this real hard. Oh, thanks. Oh, you're so cute. Our society has this obsession with logos, with facts and logic, and a lot of that is due to guys like Ben Shapiro. But this isn't necessarily a partisan issue either. In fact, one of my sources for these two videos was an article written for the school paper at Hillsdale College, which is a pretty hardline conservative school. In the article, the author says that facts are facts regardless of a person's feelings, but feelings don't care about your facts either. And everyday conversation between liberals and conservatives proves the futility of facts as a persuasive tool. The power of story is that it shows rather than tells. And that is the difference between appealing to feelings and assaulting with facts. Science and data and facts and objectivity are all good things, but they shouldn't be the entirety of how we make decisions or form arguments. Feelings, stories, and metaphors and anecdotes are important, just as important as facts. It's not facts over feelings, but it's also not feelings over facts. It's facts and feelings. As education scholar Sir Ken Robinson says, a world without feelings would be literally inhuman. It's through feelings as well as through reason that we find our real creative power. It's through both that we connect with each other and create the complex, shifting worlds of human culture. So, the next time that someone accuses you of being too emotional or using anecdotal evidence, well, point them to this video first, but also tell them that anecdotes may not be the best data, but they are the best way to actually communicate, to really connect with another person. And isn't that what conversations are all about? I want to close with a reading from the book Minds Made for Stories. If the cat will let me grab it. This is Minds Made for Stories by Thomas Newkirk. This book was pretty much the whole foundation of this whole video, and if you are an English teacher or a writer of any kind, I highly, highly recommend it. When we rely on stories, we are accused of being anecdotal, not intellectually serious. We're told that on the job and in college, we do the hard stuff, the rigorous stuff. We analyze and we make logical arguments. We don't tell stories, but we do. We can't get away from it. We rely on stories not merely for entertainment, but for explanation, meaning, self-understanding. We instinctively make connections of cause and effect and always have. To deny the centrality of narrative is to deny our own nature. We are not made for objectivity and pure abstraction, for timelessness. We have literary minds that respond to plot, character, and details in all kinds of writing. If we were godlike, according to Plato, we could dispense with metaphors and analogies and approximations. We could see the truth directly. But as humans, as time-bound mortals, we must tell stories. And have cats. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell and do all that YouTube stuff. You know what to do. You've been here before. You understand. I am still taking questions for my Q&A video, so if you have any questions for me, I'm going to start with patron questions, and then I will move on to taking questions from a community post that went up when the last video went up. When was that? 2 weeks ago? I don't know. I'm filming this on the same day, so I don't know when it's going to go up. It's a mystery to me. Now, you may have noticed that there were no mid-roll ads in this video, and that is thanks to my patrons whose names should be showing up here, and thanks in particular to the eldritch abominations known as Zauber and Sigwa. To honor my newest necromancer patron, Zalthazan, let me know if I'm pronouncing that right, please, along with Sigwa, who didn't get a poem last time, I am going to be reading 2 poems that I have written. First, this is for Zalthazan. It is called Viral. I fall in love with the whole world over and over until they all become objects of my affections. And then I give each object a bit of myself until I am no longer whole. Will I live on inside them? Will each object, like a golem, be given life by my soul shattered among them? Or am I a phytoplasmid, seeping into an already occupied space, taking over or dying out? And then we have, for Sigwa, rulings. You're so loud. Rulings, not rules. It is my belief that every criminal case should be tried not in a courthouse, but in a board game store. No more witness stands, muffled sobs, your honors. Give me 2 close card tables and crit hit fist-pumping shouts punctuated with clattering dice, where every rule is a maybe, and every decision made by group consensus, fair to all. You can certainly try, and I'll allow it, and the only death penalty is a new, crisp, clean character sheet. If you liked those, feel free to join us over on Patreon, which is linked in the description. And until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and I will see y'all again soon, I hope. Bye, folks. Desmond, say bye. Are you gonna say bye to the nice people? They love you. They do, they love you. They love you. Oh goodness. I know. Oh, you're such a good boy. Mwah. He's a pain in the ass. He really is. What? Oh, let's scratch those ears. Oh, squitchy, squitchy, squitch. Yes.